Well, welcome. Hey, Pete. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day it might be, and wherever you're in the world. Um, yeah, welcome to our end of the world series introduction video. Um, Boutique-y is usually so upbeat all of the time. So how did we get to an end of the world series release? I mean, it's yeah, we're always upbeat. Turn on the news, read the paper, open any social media platform these days. And I was just reminded about that just the other day when I opened up Twitter. I thought, no, turned it straight down. And for the younger generation, which I can't deal with at all, open TikTok. Watch it for as long as you can stomach it. I mean, it just drives me batty.
What a time to be alive. But get over yourself. It's not worse than it's ever been. It's hard to believe, but things have always been awful.
Yeah.
Most of us Homo sapiens have spent millennia fearing for our lives. Predicting the end of the world is as old a human tradition as murdering one another. Even our best and brightest have made a habit of forecasting their own demise and been wrong every time.
Yeah, absolutely. We spend our days hearing about whiskey industry challenges, soaring bottle and cask prices, investment scams, and that little voice in our heads asking, when is the bubble going to burst? And then we come home, well, you do, I don't, come home and hear our children repeating the environmental fatalism, and I certainly did hear my children repeating the environmental fatalism. I just remember it for a little while ago. That they've learned in school, a predetermined destiny dogma that high transparency and low wisdom can encourage, breeding the sort of nihilism that could freeze even the warmest heart.
But here at Boutique-y, we resist that impulse. We choose to believe in a glorious and prosperous future because the alternative is just so damn miserable.
It is, isn't it? Hey. That Boutique-y Whisky Company was founded in the ominous year of 2012, the very year the ancient Mayans believed it would all end. Born in an age of unprecedented prosperity, low interest rates, and blind optimism, today we at Boutique-y find ourselves increasingly bombarded with the unprecedented cynicism, rising nihilism, tireless barrage of bad news, and endemic casual fatalism. But we consciously choose joy every damn time. Yep, it's our privilege and thus our prerogative.
Does anyone remember the Millennium Bug?
Oh, yeah, and does anyone remember laughter? Hey, bit of Robert Plant in there right at the end. Anyway, this limited edition end of the world themed whiskies is an attempt to paint our cultural malaise, face our demons as a means of defeating them. A cave painting of our age brought to life by three brilliant in-house artists, Ayla Toye, Gunter Hannah Stevens, along with our longtime collaborator, Emily Chappell. Their work, I think you can see any of these on here, hopefully playing some modest part in making the overwhelmingly dread lift, even if temporarily, to relish in the wonders of good company and great whiskey, if it's the last thing we do. This selection consists of 15 headline whiskies from Scotland, Canada, England, Wales. There's 7 rums, 6 additional Scotch whiskies, as if there wasn't enough.
We're not going to sit here and taste our way through all of these, as much as we'd be happy to do so. But it's not the end of the world, and we've got shit to do.
We certainly have. So we're going to pick a few highlights to taste while we're telling you about the others. Would anything be comprehensible after all of those whiskies anyway? Whiskies and rums?
Yes, of course, mate. Because we're professionals.
We are professionals. You're absolutely right. We could do it, but we just didn't want you to sit through 15 hours of us rambling on endlessly about great whiskies. Okay, where should we start? Let's start with the end of the world whiskey blend. Now, we've made a world whiskey blend. It's first of our core range, and then we went and made an out of this world whiskey blend. We've made a small world whiskey blend for our birthday, so why not have an end of the world whiskey blend, which is what we have right here. Oh, and it's in 70 CL, like all of our other whiskey blends, I think. Now, with the grain coming from Scotland, Ireland, and Canada, there are Scottish malts coming from Ayla and Speyside, and a few other whiskies from around the world there as well. Like all boutique, there is no E150 spirit caramel in here, and just feast your eyes on that glorious colour. All natural, so you can be sure there's a good deal of age, wine and sherry cask influence in this, and distilled from all over this planet. Distillate styles from all over the planet, and it smells really delicious. It really does come across as rich, dark, and very, very decadent. Perfect for sitting at the end of the world restaurant.
He's lovely.
And watching life go past. I mean, it's full of dark fruit flavours. It's really quite chocolatey as well now coming through. Very, very naughty.
I do like waiting for these opportunities, David.
So this comes from the World Blender of the Year. Well, last year, obviously, because we haven't chosen one this year. Only things have just started going. But this was made last year when Dr. Sam Simmons was indeed the World Blender of the Year. It's really big, bold, powerful mouthfeel, complex and layered. It's a harmonious blend of sweet and fruity, nutty and spicy elements. There's lots of silky, rich, dark chocolate dates. It's delicious. I'm really impressed with this. Now, for our end of the world whiskey blend label, we pulled out all the stops and asked Emily to create a full canvas, a 3-panel triptych in a biblical apocalyptic style.
That's easy for you, so mate.
Apocalypse Now. Yes, I can't say it at the moment. We drew inspiration, shall we say, despair, from a few artists, but in the full Emily Chappell style, was really inspired by a recent visit to a Grayson Perry exhibition in Edinburgh. It's the sort of Renaissance meets Sergeant Pepper in Glasgow sort of effect. So there are 3 different labels on these bottles. They will come out at random. So the whole series of 400 bottles were printed with each with a different label. They all join up to fit one big picture, which we showed earlier, which all that one there. So there you can see they've all got little. I love hugs. There's someone giving us a song, wanting hugs, self-care. The end of the world is nigh. Oh, thank you so much. Send hugs. Yeah, just lovely. I just love it.
That really is genius.
What do you think, Pete?
I think the whiskey is delicious, actually, genuinely so.
Yes,
and have we got enough of this stuff to make drinks next time we catch up? I hope so.
To make drinks, I feel I can get some
make some mixed drinks with. I feel like I mean, it's a drinker, but I would love to get some in, old fashioned.
Okay, that's the starting headline whiskey, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail of the other ones as we go through. But let's start with a rum, Pete, shall we?
Let's go with a rum. So, are you driving the deck?
I'm driving the deck. There are 7 rums.
7 rums, right? We have 7 rums. Our first rum is loosely based around the theme of decay. Batch 1 of our blended rum number 1 was released when we launched way back in October 2018 and proved to be one of our most iconic bottlings ever. An unassuming name that completely failed to convey the weight and complexity of the 9-year-old Jamaican rum blend contained within, and it has become something of a cult favourite. So our batch 3 that we are releasing, this one, is a longer age version of that iconic rum blend. 14 long years in cask, presented at 56.7% ABV. It was distilled back in September 2018, or as the youngest age, get it around the right way, and then refilled into recycled rum casks in 2015. This is a blend of pot and column distillates from various Jamaican distilleries. It contains an element from our secret distillery number 1, but also contains rums from 3 other distilleries. We are sworn to secrecy on those. It is unmistakably Jamaican, and a drop of lovely funky rum. I'm just carefully pouring a little bit into mine. The label, it's the label you'll recognise. There's a little modification. It's a highly imaginative muck hole bordered with planks. Don't be scared by the skull and crossbones. Historically, warnings are a place to keep people away, and many rumours persist. For the chemists amongst you, I wish I was one of them. You might recognize the various flavor elements of ethyl butyrate, which gives you the aroma of pineapple, amyl acetate, which gives you banana, ethyl acetate, which is pear drops, and ethyl propionate, which is also pineapple. And when you get it in your glass, this for me is all the tropical fruit. I mean, it is a hallmark of Jamaican rum. Lots of underripe pineapple. I get crisp green apple and banana. There's a tart red plum note to it. I get a kind of peachy notes to it as well, gentle peachy notes in there.
It's delicious.
There's lots more of that underripe pineapple on the palate. Yeah, crisp and juicy mango, ripe banana, even a little salted caramel at the end. And I think that's that longer age bringing that to it over and above the young one. Pear drops, orange peel, giving way to oh man, it's so much, it's so big. To baking spices, I get caraway seeds. I get like ginger in the finish as well. Black olive and tannins and even a little eucalyptus.
Like you say, it's unmistakably. I mean, as I've been tasting rum through over the years with you, it is unmistakably.
It's so good. It's a beautiful, complex blend. There's a lot going on. An extra 5 years has really brought something to it. I think this is an absolute belter. I love the 9-year-old version. I have a tiny bit left over. 5 years has brought a lot more to it. It's an absolute belter. 369 bottles produced. One to keep an eye out for.
Excellent. Okay, it's up to me now, I think, and we're going to go and hit the golden vintages, and we've split this into 4 little groups of whiskies for golden vintages, batch number 1s, finishes, and world whiskies. So we're going to start with the golden vintages, and what have I got first up? Okay, we've got 3 golden vintages. So the first one I'm going to talk about is an Arran. It's a 1996 from the Isle of Arran. It's a 27-year-old. We bottled this at 47.8%, and there's going to be about 668 bottles. Now, this is from their first full year of production. So expect a sophisticated and complex Arran here. It is delicious. The combination of the distillery character, extended maturation, and that sherry cask influence has resulted in a whiskey with a harmonious balance of rich fruitiness, sweet indulgence, and oak-driven complexity. I love this label here. It's sort of this divine inspiration. So that was the inspiration for our label, divine inspiration, an all-powerful deity intervening in the world and bringing history to the end. So that's our Arran. We're not going to taste that because we've got something a little bit more, not more exciting, but another one of our golden vintages. We could say one from this lot. We have a golden vintage Ben Nevis, 1996. A 26-year-old, bottled again at 47.8. Coincidence? Conspiracy theories. 503 bottles. This 26-year-old single malt has been matured in a refill sherry cask. It's complex and really interesting. It's really not what I expected when I first opened this sample. 1996 is one of those fabled years for Ben Nevis, but this cask is showing a completely different character. I just got a dog come into the office. It's got a waxiness. It really has got a waxiness that came across as, to me, as I was tasting them, have I got a climb leash? And not the dirty Nevis that I was expecting. Our label inspiration here is Super Volcano, and you can see the world. You'll notice all of these labels sort of feature a central globe. There is that sort of theme running all the way through, which sort of leads back to the first world whiskey blend with that globe in the middle. Anyway, this is a super volcano. And did you know that Ben Nevis is actually the remains of one of Scotland's super volcanoes? So the hat fitted. So what are we going to put in our glass? Well, what we're going to put in our glass is probably the oldest whiskey we've had out for a little while in your glass, Pete. Because you've been supplying all the old rums. This is a 31-year-old Glen Grant.
31 years old.
We haven't had an awful lot of Glen Grant. As you can see on the label here, this is batch number 2. We've only ever bottled one batch of Glen Grant in the past. So this is a refined and elegant treat. And it really, word. 31 years old, matured in an ex-bourbon cask. That quarter of a century of aging period brings a harmonious integration of flavors. It's really showcasing the influence of both the distillery character and that ex-bourbon cask. It's a sophisticated malt with a complex interplay of sweet and fruity and oak-driven notes, making it a delightful sipping experience for those of you who appreciate well-matured whiskies. There's lots of subtle citrus notes. There's candied orange peel. There's dried fruit here as well. There's some lighter fruits if we're thinking of apricots and sort of really dry figs alongside tinned peaches in syrup. It's delicious. There is a pronounced vanilla note that comes a little bit later alongside that sort of well-integrated oak. It's not overwooded at 31 years old.
It really isn't.
Luxury,
really isn't.
creamy.
That's fabulous.
Tin pineapple, mango. It's really classy, and I wanted to bring this out because I think it is, out of the 3 golden vintages, to have a Glen Grant is kind of special because we've had some wonderful Arons over the years. We've had some great Ben Nevises, but just 2 Glen Grants. I think the first one was a 10-year-old. Now our label here, inspiration, a solar flare, which you can see a solar flare coming back. It's a little tenuous, we know, but Glen Grant is owned by Campari, and Campari originally, before 2006, took its color from cochineal, and cochineal are insects that live on cacti, and cacti love the sun. Okay, whatever. There's the Major's point of view, Major Tom, Major Grant, looking back on planet Earth, escaping the ravages of that solar flare. It's a ground-controlled to sort of Major Grant, that musical thing coming in, Boutique-y Whisky. And there's nothing I can do. But, yeah, we love this label too.
Oh, that's superb. But and that is delish. I am so not putting that dram back in the sample box. That's staying with me for later on. That's this evening's work. That one. God, dear, oh dear.
Okay, let's do another rum, Peter.
31 years old, though. Right. Well, we've got some old rum. We have got some old rum. Our second rum today is our Diamond Distillery Saval Still. This is our batch 4. I'm kind of theming this one around wildfire, and we see a lot more of this especially in America and places. Last 2023 had a lot of wildfire about it. This is an 18-year-old, 58% ABV Saval Still bottling, and it's our 3rd heritage still offering from the Diamond Distillery, which is located on the banks of Demerara River in Guyana. This is a very famous 4-column metal French Saval Still, and it was inherited from the 18th century Iflet. I'm just going to say Iflet. That's how I say it. Apologies if you say it differently. Iflet Estates, and is extremely versatile in producing historic marks, quite different from our batch 1, for example. This particular one was distilled in 2003 and then transferred to the UK for further maturation. But this SVL mark is a pre-coloured mark. It is part of their sort of traditional process, and I'm not going to try and comment on the processes of pre-colouring. There are lots of apocryphal thoughts on the subject. So until I know, I won't say. But what it does do is it carries a lovely smoky molasses note to it. For me, I'm unmistakably Guyanese. I can't think of any other producer in the world that would make a rum like with this kind of note. The label, I think the label is rather lovely on this one, even though it's rather traumatic. The label shows the good ship Greenheart, the pride of the Boutique-y fleet, sailing up to Diamond City. The Diamond Distillery, along that slow-moving river of rich Demerara molasses. The traditional burning of the sugarcane, which happens in Guyana and many other places around the world, feels completely out of control, and that sort of thick smoke fills the sky. Don't worry, though. Everything will be okay.
Everything will be okay with this. This is
everything will be
end of the world drum too, isn't it?
It is. So lots of molasses, caramel. I get lovely juicy dates, and there's a cacao note to it. Juicy raisins as well.
Ooh, it's very yummy.
Baking spices in the finish. So the tannins, I think, sort of reveal at the end. I mean, it's 18 years old. This is an old rum. But I'd say that this is actually quite a gluggable rum as well. 58% ABV. Holy moly, very gluggable. One of 294 bottles produced. Shall we move on?
Lovely stuff. Aye. So we have, let's go to our next little group of whiskies, which are batch number ones. We have 4 batch number ones. We're going to taste one of these. Let's talk about the first 2. There are a pair. I wanted to taste this one as well, I must admit. It's the Imperial 25-year-old, an elegant and rich balanced Imperial from the last year of their production, 1998. 25 years in the barrel has imparted that rich complexity with a harmonious interplay of citrus, vanilla, and oak-driven characteristics. Each sip, really, when I would taste it, I mean, I've got a soft spot for old Imperial. The distillery closed, I say, a long time ago and completely razed to the ground now. Our label inspiration here is simulation theory. The Imperial distillery was demolished in 2013, and it actually made way for the new Dalmunnock distillery, which is our next one here, our new number one, the Dalmunnock. This is a relatively new distillery in Scotland, located in the Speyside region. It's a big, modern distillery. It's our first ever bottling of the Dalmunnock. It's one of Scotland's workhorse distilleries. Its malt is destined for the Chivas blended Scotch whiskies. Their malt whiskies are still relatively young, but they have gained attention with their promising quality. This is a 7-year-old, and it's rather yummy. Our label here is AI goes wrong. So we've got simulation theory and AI goes wrong. They're the 2 here of our labels. Cracking labels again. AI goes wrong. It's built on the site of Imperial, and several of Imperial's key design features were inherited by Dalmunnock. So they used some of the original materials back into the new distillery, which is kind of cool. So it's just did one thing happen or the other, and that's why they're tied together as a pair. The one we are going to open is Speyside number 8, a new 9-year-old from a new Speyside distillery that we have never bottled before. So it's a secret distillery. It's a single malt. We're not allowed to name it. We bottled this at 50% ABV. We've got a cracking label on here. This is one of my favorite sort of party labels.
I love that.
Yeah, love this. Our label here is obviously nuclear apocalypse. Growing up, when I did, Cold War, nuclear apocalypse, the Falklands War, all of those things were here to hit us time and time after again. So we've got a theoretical scenario here where mass detonation of nuclear weapons causes that globally widespread mutually assured destruction. I think there was an Ian Gillan album and tour that I went to a long time ago. Anyway, there was a significant bomb dropped into the news not so long ago, end of last year, by one of Scotland's oldest independent bottlers. That could be a clue. Whiskey from this distillery is known for its traditional regional character, often featuring a balance of maltiness, fruitiness, and a touch of peat. Now, this refill hogshead cask has allowed maturation without overpowering the core character. Malty sweetness, fruitiness, and a subtle layer of peat. Now, you will notice that this one is very, very light in colour. It has just a refill hoggy. This was just fillings that we picked out. We're not allowed to name it, but it is from that distillery we've never bottled before, which I'm kind of happy about, and it is very good. There is, so it's light and fresh, but it's more.
Ben who? Sorry. I was saying Ben who? I shouldn't say it, should I?
It is really malt driven. You can taste that malty sweetness, that malty sweetness on the palate. If you've been crunching malted barley, which I occasionally do when I'm in a distillery and grab something just to taste the malt. But it's also fresh, refreshingly bright with citrus and apple. And that little bit of smoke that comes through that just sort of brings that complexity there, and that little salty brininess in the finish. Just classic.
Beautiful. So striking as well, these labels. But the labels are also striking, but that one just also makes me laugh. Absolutely.
It does really make you laugh. Yeah. Nuclear apocalypse, you've got to laugh, haven't you? There's nothing else you can do, is there?
What else can we do? No.
There is one more batch one, and this is we've never bottled a Strathyla. This is a 10-year-old Strathyla, 51%. 51.5%, around 445 bottles. It's a 10-year-old Strathyla matured in an ex-bourbon cask. It's well balanced. It's very approachable single malt. The influence of that bourbon cask imparts the obvious sweetness, vanilla, creamy texture to the whiskey, while the character of the spirit brings those sort of fruity floral notes. It's a rather splendid distillery, character-led, with just enough ex-bourbon cask to bring that creamy texture. Our label here was, of course, the Mayan prophecy. I just love those little whiskey glasses. It's a very, very loosely. The press jumped on the Mayan calendar ending the 2012, predicting the end of the world. We're all still here. It didn't actually, the Mayan calendar doesn't actually predict 2012. It was just something that they jumped on at that time. I'm pretty certain about that. The Mayans had many, many myths, and one of their most important favorite myths concerned hero twins, a pair of demigods who became heroes and tricksters. Well, the picturesque Strathyla distillery has twin malt kilns with beautiful copper-topped Doig ventilators, and you can see them just at the top of the skull there, a pair of Doig ventilator. Yes, it's tenuous. And it was also distilled after the world was supposed to end. So get over it. It's delicious.
I think everything turned out all right in the end.
Everything turned out. It's a cracking label. I want this on a t-shirt.
That would make a great t-shirt. It really would.
Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, especially with those yellow bits of luminous.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. That's a t-shirt to wear to a rave. Not that I go to raves. I'm far too old for raves.
I reckon it must be time for another rum.
I think it might be. I think, in fact, two rums. We've a brace of beauties for you with our next rums, and this is kind of the danger at sea. You know, we think about pirates, modern day pirates. There seems to be even more so actually in the news just recently. The first and second batches of the Flying Dutchman rums from Azulian were turned people's expectations of flavour profiles on their heads through their use of Old Bodega, Oloroso, and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. So how could we top a 4-year-old bottling of each? Well, how about an 8-year-old bottling of each? So bottled at 52 and 51.9% ABV respectively. Got mine. The hallmark of the team at Zoyam is the attention to detail through production and authentic production techniques, and delicious booze. The rum starts with imported molasses. Sugarcane doesn't grow in the Netherlands. Long fermentation using multiple yeast strains. Double distillation in their fabulous pot stills, and then 8 years of maturation at source in these old bodega casks before being shipped to the UK for bottling. I'm sorry, I accidentally used my little one. I got aside, so that's why I've got an imbalance of glasses. Let me just pour myself one of each.
They are so good.
They are so different. Do you remember the batch ones?
I do. But
in my glasses, but
this man can do no wrong.
He absolutely cannot do no wrong.
I'm sorry.
It's they are genuinely a work of art. Just for the want of the labels, we have both labels. We squeeze them both onto the screen for this one. We are ramping up the risks that our brave sailors take at sea with this, with this theme. Our label shows that roiling sea of fermenting molasses underneath a nightmarish sky. Sharp-eyed folks will notice our hero Patrick in his Willy Wonka garb from the whiskey labels, looking cool as a cucumber. As the grasping tentacles, we brought the Kraken in this time. Like the previous batch 1, batch 2 didn't have anything. It was just like the sea battle, but now the Kraken has joined the fray. So the Kraken threatens to pull the crew of the Howard Pile beneath the waves. So batch 3 is our Oloroso, and that's just the tentacles, whilst batch 4, which is the PX cask, has the Kraken raising its head above the waves. Quite different rums, I would suggest, in the way that they present. For me, the Oloroso cask has lots of that kind of juicy sultana and overripe pineapple, nice zesty orange note to it, and rich vanilla toffee as well. And again, I think that's the ages kind of bringing those sort of sweeter notes. Kind of
that PX has brought some blackberry as well, hasn't it?
Oloroso, I get plums, honey, salted caramel, milk chocolate. A lot of milk chocolate in the finish with the Oloroso one, which is kind of crazy with that. Very gentle grip, like all kinds of walnuts and all kinds of. It's one of those ones where I kind of, you're sitting there doing the tasting notes and you just keep pulling one thing after another, but like you have to stop somewhere, don't you? PX cask though still very much reminds me of Army and Navy sweets, all anise and kind of licorice kind of vibe, which some of the younger people out there listening to this might not necessarily know what we're talking about. That's for old people sweets. But lots of juicy red grape skins as well. Gentle. I get bacon on this, crispy bacon.
I remember a department store called Army and Navy as well.
Stop it. Yeah. Stop being so old.
Going back to the 70s, I think.
Still get all the zesty orange and sweet sultana and stuff, but it's in the finish. Ginger cake, just like my auntie used to make. Lots of ginger cake in the finish. Yeah.
That's a great shout.
Like coffee at the end of it as well. It's kind of like it just, that harmony when you want things change, but you want them to change in a harmony. So this takes you on a journey. This the PX one, but like honestly, both of them are just fabulous.
I think I need a bottle of each of these. I really do. I mean, the first two were great, but everything this guy does. We're at Boutique-y Whisky. We're huge fans of what Patrick does with our millstones, with the rye and the malts and the rums. And he's always been every distiller's favourite distiller, and he's always won these awards at Wizard Whiskies. And I just saw yesterday, just won another award at the World Whiskies Awards.
Yeah, yep. Well earned, I think. Well earned. These are two stunners. They are made right here in the colder climes of Europe, which is also a thing. There are 459 bottles of the Oloroso cask and 462 of the PX cask. So definitely one to look out for. I think they're fabulous. I'm very happy to have them. And the balance, the age, the ABV, it just comes together beautifully. Really, 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 really good. Definitely good. And crazy labels as well. We took what was already a crazy label and made them even crazier.
The labels are great. I mean, they're so dark, but with that very playful giant octopus there, the Kraken, is it?
The Kraken. Well, the Howard Pile. It's that whole thing. The Flying Dutchman. It's like it's there in it.
Hey, I should have put a tricorn on for this, shouldn't I?
I feel like I need to invest. I should have done myself.
Let's move on. The finishes. We have three. We have three finishes. We have three Scotch whiskies. We're going to move into tasting one immediately from Bravell Distillery. Braes of Glenlivet, as it used to be called a long time ago, and now Bravell. This is a 9-year-old, our fifth batch. It's bottled at 57.7% ABV. There's around 460 bottles, I think. It's rich, it's decadent. It's a 7-year-old Bravell that's been finished in PX cask. So 3 whiskies with finishes. When I first joined Boutique-y Whisky, we couldn't do that. We couldn't finish any whiskies, but we do these days. And our blender of the year. So PX casks, we've just had a PX cask rum. I thought we'd just add a whiskey here with a PX cask. This has a strong emphasis on sweet and fruity flavors. The PX finish adds that depth and complexity to a relatively young whiskey, and that relatively young age ensures that vibrant and lively character. This is a full-on sherry monster. There's bramble jelly, there's blackcurrant jam, there's herbal raspberry notes. And that PX cask really does show itself early.
Mm.
And rich, dark chocolate notes follow. Black cherry, figs, this is all on the nose. Now, the mouthfeel is really rich and mouthfilling with a balanced sweetness. There's lots of dark chocolate, leaving that bramble jelly. Chewy medjool dates. I love medjool dates, and there's generally a box of them in the kitchen. Once upon a time, I would destroy a box of them in a day until I looked at how many calories were in them. So now I never have more than 2 dates in one single day. Whereas in the olden days, when Fat Dave was on the screen, I would have 5 while making the coffee.
Just going to say, that's a great segue from the Flying Dutchman to this. The synergy between the two is crazy. If you like this, you're going to like that, you know.
It's almost like this was planned.
Who'd have thought
our label inspiration was the black hole, and I just love what we've created here, especially with that little spaceman disappearing into it. A black hole is a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that nothing, including light or other electromagnetic waves, has enough energy to escape it. Why a black hole? Well, that's really quite simple, because just about all of their whiskey disappears into the black hole of blended Scotch whiskey. So tenuous, absolutely. Corny, of course. Shockingly bad puns is what we're known for at Boutique-y.
Well done. That's fun. Well done. Well done. Congratulations. Well done, team.
We have 2 more finishes, 2 more great labels. Campbelltown. It's our 8-year-old. This is a true teaspooned blended malt from Campbelltown, i.e. both the spooned and the spooning malt come from the same region. Anyway, we racked this into a first fill bourbon barrel to just give it a little bit more depth than the original fillings that we bought. Our inspiration here was Meteor Strike, really just because the label is cool, and we went for sort of a Space Invaders style thing, game over label. And also because the fact that Campbelltown was the whiskey capital of Scotland until the 1920s, until the game was over. 17 distilleries closed in the 1920s, and by the end of the decade, only one, the Clachan distillery, was still distilling. By 1934, Springbank and Glen Scotia had restarted production, but sadly, Clachan had shut for good, and I think that's now incorporated in part of the Springbank distillery as one of the warehouses, which is still kind of cool. There's also a 17-year-old Highland Park. I wanted to taste this one as well, but for time reason, this is a classic Highland Park, but it's been respectfully finished in a PX cask. It has resulted in a beautiful, complex whiskey, balancing the distillery's characteristic Orkney peat style with the sweet and fruity influence of the sherry cask. This seriously is no clumsy PX. I'm going to grab it here. I mean, the color, it's just a beautiful golden teeth. This is not a clumsy PX cover-up. And, I was just blown away by this. The interplay of flavors and the complexity developed over 17 years of maturation, and that thoughtful finishing make this sophisticated and exceedingly enjoyable dram who appreciate that classic Highland Park. Our label here, which you may have seen in the news recently, is the Doomsday Clock. And I love what we've done here. We did have a few more ideas here, but we settled on this one here, Doomsday Clock. There was a recent news article that stated that the Orkney Isles could leave the UK to become a self-governing territory of Norway after its council opted to explore alternative forms of governance. That clock could be ticking for Highland Park as a Scotch whisky. So there is the Nordic connections exploration. Yes, the Orkney Islands Council leader to explore its Nordic connections. There is the label tenuous link there to the Doomsday Clock, and we thought it fitted. We really should have put a sort of comic style Viking horns on it, or some runes or something like that. But we got there. We got there in the end, and I love this label. The whiskey is just stunning.
All right, David.
Stunning.
You've convinced me, mate. We'll try it after we finish recording. We'll just open that one, shall we?
You've got the. We're time for a rum. Yeah. Time for a rum.
After the recording, we'll do it. This one is, thank you. Back to rum. Wow, we are getting through it. Well, we're doing well today. I think we should give ourselves a clap on the back. This is our fifth rum. This is sort of based around the witching hour, the sort of that feeling of unease that you might get, kind of thing. Haiti is originating from the country's biggest distillery. This is a traditional column still rum, which was distilled in 2004. Long time ago. Feels like a long time ago. Matured in Haiti for 6 years, then transferred to the UK for the remainder of its maturation. The label is familiar. It has folks from our previous batches, that is. This is our batch 5. The label has folks from history sitting at a street cafe, sort of chatting about art and culture over a glass of rum. Got General Toussaint Louverture, that iconic leader of the Republic of Haiti. Yeah, Haiti was the first republic, the first time that the slaves rose up and threw out the colonizers. To his right, the statue of the unknown slave. So much rum has that history of slavery that unfortunate, but a reality. We've got the famous artist Hector, amongst many from Haiti, but Hector Hippolyte sits there to the left of the easel, and next to Hector we see a lady in a traditional Haitian quadrille dress and headscarf. It's meant to be a little bit of an artist's impression of the view, but we're pretty sure there's a story behind the inclusion of the vendor with that 3-wheeled bike, heavily laden with crates of fruit, and a large cooler underneath a large parasol. I may have a personal story to tell on that one, which we can tell over a rum anytime you fancy, chap. I'm going to pour myself just a little dram while we're talking that. I need to concentrate with that. It is lovely. Haiti continues to be a troubled country. There may be unease at voodoo imagery or even at the risk of violence. And this is one thing, but we need to ensure that the rest of the world focuses, our focus remains on all the positives that can be found. There is a beautiful country full of wonderfully creative people, lots of love and creativity. And this is delicious. And I know this is our batch 5, and I know I've enjoyed many of the other batches before, but oh my God. Is this not a most gloriously fruity kind of yum dried mango and pineapple?
I've enjoyed all of the other batches as well, I must admit. And every time I've tasted one, I think, oh man, I really need to get some Haiti. Yeah, this is.
Normally when we do these tastings, I try and sort of put them in an order where the sort of it goes from the easiest sip through to like the most robust. In the end, this one we just went alphabetical order. But this is, I mean, it's got creamy vanilla custard and I bet it's a little grassy, and I get a little kind of eucalyptus and green tea and
fruity.
Sweet Victoria plum, soft sweet Victoria plum. That kind of like almost sun ripened, warm from the tree kind of sweet plum kind of vibe.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a Victoria plum in the garden, and yes, I can see where you're coming from. Really sweet and a warm one that you pick on a summer's day,
but it's like a real gentle, long, lingering, sweet oak. I mean, it's oak for sure, but right at the very end, a little peppery warmth right at the very end of this one. This one is using up the part. We've done various bespoke bottling, so this one's a small outrun, just 166 bottles, but oh God, is it? Absolutely. I mean, I may have poured a little bit more into this one, just so when I'm clearing up the table afterwards, I have a little bit more to enjoy later. Absolutely. Honestly, I think this is fabulous. Absolutely superb rum. 15 years old, 61.4%. Did I mention that? I'm not sure I did. Does it drink like 61.4%? Absolutely,
No.
definitely does not.
It's so beautifully balanced.
Mm.
It is so beautifully balanced.
Wonderful. I could drink that all day long. We should.
We should.
We should find a minute and go and do that. But we can't now because we got more things to try, David. More things.
We have. Okay, so the final 4 whiskies in my little batch are non-Scotch.
None.
We have 4 non-Scotch. And that's what we're going to move to next. Now, I want you. We've got here. Yeah. We're going to taste 2 of these non-Scotches. The first one is a corn whiskey from Canada. So we've got 4 non-Scotches, 1 from Canada, 1 from Wales, and 2 English whiskies. We're just going to breeze over this one. Corn whiskey number 1. It's our second batch. It's an 8-year-old. It's bottled at 51.9% ABV. Canadian whiskey is typically known for its blending tradition, which often includes a significant portion of rye. The concept of Canadian corn whiskey finished in sherry casks is intriguing, marrying the sweetness of corn with the rich, fruity influence of sherry casks. Our label inspiration here is pandemic. And there's a wonderful quote I found from the Toronto World, October the 18th, 1918. 1918, this was a quote from the Toronto World newspaper. Just think, if we all wear masks, no one can breathe the next person's face, and there will be no spitting on the sidewalks. Think of the future generations and just to see how nicely this thing will work out. I mean, how...
People don't change, do we? Things don't change.
What are we talking about? 102 years apart. 102 years. A century after this piece of advice was offered during the Spanish flu outbreak, we're still struggling with mask wearing and other protection methods when a pandemic happened. Now, I worked in Southeast Asia for a long time and masks were commonplace. It really was. I mean, when someone had a cold in Thailand, they put a mask on because they didn't want other people getting the germs. It was just a bit of cloth across their face. They put that across their face. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, we thought that
we could rant about that, couldn't we, David? We could rant. We could, just for a little bit.
No, we're not.
We shouldn't.
But yeah, pandemic. Yeah, just look at these labels. Aren't they beautiful? We're going to taste this one because this is a distillery that I love because we bottled a 40-day-old whiskey. And secondly, I really love this label.
I remember this one well. Well, I remember the 40-day whiskey well. That was super boutique-y. It was super delicious.
I just love. Master of Malt have described the Circumstance Distillery as Britain's most innovative distillery. And I've mentioned that I'm too a fan of what they've been doing, really because of their innovation of we don't need a cask, let's do stuff. The team of Circumstance are all about flavour, and they're not limiting themselves to the whiskey rules that everyone else follows, because I'm not a fan of whiskey rules. I'm not a fan of rules, period. This uses a mixed mash bill of their malted and unmalted barley, and maturation is in new charred European oak. So this is a whiskey. We can call it a whiskey. Our first batch, obviously, we couldn't call a whiskey, even though it was a beautiful color and tasted like a whiskey, but it was just 40 days old. Our label inspiration here is alien invasion. We're all waiting for that alien invasion, and this is 1950s sort of spaceships. Not that I was around in 1950s, but this what it does talk
nearly
1950s, 1960s artwork here. When we looked at what the team at Circumstance, like I say, considered to be Britain's most innovative distillery, were doing, which seemed like so alien to what the rest of the world has been doing. Their new and innovative ideas, spindle aging, like our 40-day-old that we did a little while ago, removing that necessity for oak cask, for example, is totally out of this world. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's 3 years old. It's surprisingly rich, and I hate that, which it's really good for a 3-year-old. It's good. It's great. It's full. It's textured. The mouthfeel is really quite filling. There's a malty sweetness, a lot of malty sweetness, and it's complemented by vanilla and toffee notes. Oh,
I would like to. We should do a thing where we get people to try it and ask them what they think the age of that is.
I love sneaking these whiskeys into tastings blind. I'm a huge advocate of blind tasting, just to take away preconceptions. Oh, I love that little bit of coffee that just lingers at the end.
It does. I mean, trying things is, everyone can try things, can't they? But so much of what they try kind of hits the mark.
Oh, that's cool. I'm really impressed with this. I'm impressed with the distillery. I like the ethos that they have, and say, sod the rules. And I think we're going to get more of these distilleries challenging the rules. I don't like the idea of conforming. I know certain things need to be protected, and that's fine, but I like a little bit of challenging, especially from these new distilleries around the world. I say we've got 4 finishes. Our next one, we're not going to taste this one, is Penderyn. Third batch, sorry, non-Scotch. This is a 12-year-old Penderyn from Wales. We went for the rise of the robots for our label here. It's a very tenuous link to Penderyn, we know, but we're great admirers of Penderyn's Faraday stills, distinct from most other stills in operation today. With so many distilleries, new distilleries around the world being built with their off-the-shelf stills, Carl or ice stills, or so many of the old world distilleries embracing automation. Penderyn didn't really. They made that completely different still, way out of it. We went for the rise of the robots here, and you can see on our label here, the stills have taken over. These are robot stills, and they're out to take it. It is stunning. I wish we could taste it today. It's a well-balanced and sophisticated whiskey with another one of those inherent Penderyn character. When you taste a Penderyn, you always say, taste it, Penderyn. It has a character because of their unique stills. And then there's a port cask. This is port cask, finished, matured. That marriage of sweet fruit, oak, and spices, it really is special. Maybe one to bring out this weekend for certainly for a weekend of Six Nations rugby.
You're giving away the time there, mate. You're giving away the time. You are.
Okay. Up next, I've got one more to taste of the whiskies of the non-Scotch. You knew I would be picking this.
Yeah, I guaranteed I would know.
You knew I would be picking this. We have to label this as a single grain whiskey, just like the circumstance we've just tasted. It is another English whiskey. It is from Oxford's Artisan Distillery. It's a 3-year-old rye whiskey bottled at 57.4% ABV. We're expecting around 370 something bottles, 400 bottles. It always had to be a rye for me. This is why I picked 2 out of this lot, non-Scotch. Their approach is characterized by a commitment to sustainability, organic farming, traditional artisanal methods. And this rye whiskey has been matured in a vintage port cask, which offers sort of something unique and complex profile. Spiciness of rye, the fruitiness and tannic characteristics imparted by the port cask. I was excited initially when I saw what was coming, and when tasting this was simply blown away. It is kin awesome. Now, everybody knows that rye has taken my heart completely sometimes. And, you know, what's my favorite whiskey? Always the next one. Our label inspiration here is climate disaster. We're hearing about it all the time with the storms, and 9 storms since September so far.
Yeah.
We thought that the Oxford Artisanal Distilleries heritage grains, monitored by the archaeobotanist John Letts, might survive a climate disaster. Hence, it was the ideal candidate for our climate disaster label. Now, these guys are committed to organic farming practices, ensuring that the raw materials used in their spirits are grown without synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, and that the grains will endure drought or flooding. Oh man,
It's been a long day already, ain't it, chap? It's been a long day.
Oh man, this has been a long year. Oh, good Lord. It is so velvety and creamy in the mouth with this.
If this was served like a lollipop, I wouldn't be at all surprised. It is glorious.
It's so fruity.
I mean, the color of it. Yeah, exactly. It feels like you want to, like you could get a lollipop and suck and get all these flavors. It is just wonderful.
Oh yes,
I love the color of it. The color is just glorious. I shouldn't be caught on color, should I? Everyone knows that, like in the rum world, we don't. I try not to talk about color, but oh my god, that looks good in the glass.
I mean, there is that sort of
beautiful
classic rye spiciness, dusty, chalky black pepper, cinnamon, and sort of that spiciness on the nose, and then all of a sudden there's that sort of burst. So boom, as it hits your head, and mid-berry aromas, raspberries, strawberry, and subtle notes of dark chocolate. But that palate is,
love it.
That is
good choice. Well done. Thank you for sharing that. We could always go back and do another video where we try the other ones.
We can do that.
And another video where we try the other ones. So like we can always do this. We have a lot on this outrun. Too much for one. Genuinely too much for one.
Tots and drams will do this.
We will absolutely do it. Oh my god, that's going to be a long tots and drams. It's going to be amazing. Oh look, rum time.
Let's finish with a couple of rums, shall we?
Yeah, why not? You know what? And I like the synergy of what we've got here. We've got the absolute youngest and the absolute oldest. We are returning to actually, to be fair, we're linking up with global warming and drought is the vibe that we want to convey with this one a little bit. We are returning to the craft rum, Agricola de Madeira producer, which is Orizinho. Everyone knows I'm a massive fan of Madeiran rum. This is a pot still agricole rum that bottling that straddles that sort of vibrant unaged white release and then the genuinely aged offerings. Like under Madeiran law, rum law, I might say, under Madeiran rum law, a rum needs to be a minimum of 3 years old before it's considered aged. However, this bottling has been rested for 9 months, and it clearly displays that sort of golden hue of timing cast. This is an unmodified bottle. We haven't coloured this in any way or form. And the interaction that the rum has benefited from timing cast presents itself immediately when you pour yourself a measure, which I'm going to do. It is so young, just 9 months. We bottled some before. This is what batch 4 under the Orizinho name. We got that kind of I love this. It's just the fact that the grassy green olive, crisp white summery fruit kind of thing of the new make sugarcane juice rum sort of nudges up against that gentle sort of soft dried stone fruit of the Madeira ex-Madeira wine fortified wine cask that and that sort of softens the spirit. The cask lends that sort of weight and mouth feel, and it's not in there for very long. But for me, this is one of those situations that proves that age is just a number when it comes to flavor.
Absolutely, this is so full of flavor. I mean, I've tasted the new make spirit, and I'm a huge fan of these guys as well. That olive note that comes across for someone who lives on olives.
This was details produced during the 2019 growing season. So we've had it for a little while. We have had this for a little while. We've just been waiting waiting for those opportunities to release. So it's a 9-month-old agricole rum. It was matured entirely in Madeira at the Ourizinho location. And if you know Madeira, then you know that each of the producers have their own kind of like micro terroir about where they are on the island. So just being Madeira is not enough to say exclusively about it. It was then shipped to the UK, and we bottled this at 57% ABV. And again, that's an ABV that just belies that you wouldn't have thought it was based on how easily it drinks. The label, originally created by our favorite, our Jim will paint it. This is the Funky Olive King. It does look like he's received the Goldfinger treatment in order to represent our 9-month rested bottling. He's sitting on a throne of sugarcane, like the total boss that he is. But the sun is beating down relentlessly, and we worry, like without rain, the drought, there would be no sugarcane. If there's no sugarcane, there's no rum. So that's my worry.
There's no natural springs on this island, is that right? It's all about.
I mean, to be fair, Madeira is one of the nice, most the whole. It is a little bit slow. The whole Madeira is one of these things that the shape and position of the island just catches the weather, and through the centuries of water control through the Levada. Actually, it's unlikely that Madeira is ever going to run out of water. But but there are parts of the world that do struggle with drought, and it's difficult to know if we disrupt the weather patterns the way we are. Will things get worse? I hope. I mean, it might be just because it's Madeira, but other parts of the world are going to struggle potentially if we carry on doing it. Yeah, but no rain. Sugarcane is a thirsty crop. No rain, no sugarcane, no rum.
No rain,
it's a concern, but I think we'll be okay for Madeira. I think we'll be okay. I think there are other pressures on Madeira and rum production that will come first.
Fingers crossed, but it only takes a shift in the weather pattern, doesn't it, for it to
absolutely disappear? It really does. And Madeira is one of those places that's completely unique from its geographical positioning. The geography of it just happens to have created this fabulously vibrant kind of fertile island. But things can change. From a tasting point of view, this is an absolute vibrant riot of green olive, cardamom. I get cardamom, green, lots of green banana, lychee, crisp white nectarine. Olives
and cardamom is perfect.
The sweet, almost like a sweet syrupy kind of mouthfeel, like maple syrup, jammy Victoria plum. There's so much in this, but there is, despite its young age, a gentle tannic note within it as well, and 432 bottles. And an absolute personal fave. I love this rum, and I also love the guy that makes it as well. He's a gent and an absolute legend. I like the connectivity, and we're going to go from. It's not just you pulling out the old guns. I can't match a 31-year-old on this particular occasion, but we have got a 29-year-old Eiflet that sort of feels like my vibe for this one was lost and forgotten.
It's a very, very dark label, Pete.
It is, and I can't. You know what? We'll talk about the label in a second. But this is a rum produced way back in October 1993 at a distillery which has long since closed in 1999. Distilled on the famous Port Morant double wooden pot still, which is vat still, sorry, which in itself is a unique piece of rum history. So we've got something very rare, something very desirable. It's enjoyed a long continental maturation in an ex-malt whiskey cask. Who knew? Sorry, I feel like I'm letting the side down, but no, it's an ex-malt whiskey cask. It's been bottled at 44%, and we haven't. That's just the ABV that it ended up at. We haven't reduced this particularly. I think this is an amazing sip of rum, and I think it's also a piece of rum history that is absolutely to be cherished.
Well, 29, 31.
It's old. This is a label. Previous ones of the previous labels have been. Say what?
Are they both prime numbers?
Don't take me back to my youth and at school. Please don't do that.
I'm sure they're both prime numbers. 29 and 31. I think they're two prime numbers, aren't they?
Lordy, let's not go there. You mentioned at the beginning about the in-house design team being involved with this. So up until now, all the rum labels showed so far are modifications of existings. This one is a brand new label created by Ayla. I think we kept it deliberately simple so that we keep our eyes on keep our focus on the liquid as much as anything. This is a forgotten aging house, where like those fine spirits sort of gently rest the years away, and but we have a moment of anticipation. This is you've got a glass of something delicious in front of you, and you know what? This is one to take your time with. I think this is not so much now but when I first poured it, pencil shavings was that very first thing I got off of it. But then there's blueberries and sultanas and even a natural yogurt vibe. I couldn't when I was doing the tasting notes, I couldn't kind of get past that. The smoke, hints of smoke and caraway seed, probably thanks to the whiskey cask. But it's soft, it's sweet on the palate. The ABV probably helps in that respect. It's delicate.
It's very delicate, isn't it?
Vanilla custard. Yes, and yes, we're trying it at the end. Could I start with the 20? No, I kind of like I deliberately ran in alphabetical order on this one. Could I position it differently? I don't know, maybe. But vanilla custard. Get some of that.
I'm just putting it back against the 31-year-old Pete. I think that'd be a good idea to run that back by, and they are both prime numbers.
We could absolutely, after this recording is finished, we could definitely talk further about this, chap. Nobody wants to hear us whittling on about rum and whiskey, do they? Not old rum and whiskey, anyway.
Old rum and whiskey and prime numbers. No one wants to hear that.
I get rye bread off this as well, and I mean, we're not very far from Christmas. I can still taste the Brazil nuts, those creamy Brazil nuts, But this is, it's got a lovely lingering kind of vibe. I mean, I just honestly, I've absolutely loved this one. This is a very easy to drink old rum, but it's not easy in the fact that it's simple. There's a complexity to it, just the balance of everything that kind of comes together. Nice glass of this. Take your time. Enjoy a little bit of rum history, I think, with this one.
This is one to sit and watch.
Take your time with
apocalypse.
Hopefully not. Well, maybe if we're going to do it, may as well do it with a glass of this in your hand, mightn't you? If the apocalypse is coming. 396 bottles of must-have. If you're a rum person, this is a must-have. A little bit of rum history. Will never be reopened. The pot still will never be moved back there again. Never going to happen. This is a piece of history, and you should take your time with it. Absolutely.
You need to have it just in case someone tells you the end of the world is nigh.
I think so. It's not a bad one to end on, is it? I know you've had older. I've enjoyed in the last few releases to have some really, really old stuff, but you've beaten me on this occasion, and so I guess you should do with whiskey.
Well, it's nothing about age.
We're not, are we? We're not age snobs. But when you've got something old, it does taste pretty good.
I think some of the young, that 3-year-old Oxford. Come on.
It was delicious. It absolutely was delicious. Yes, the label is a little dark on this one, but this is about focusing on the liquid. This one, cool. I've enjoyed it so far, mate.
As we say in our label chat, it's a little brown, isn't it?
It is. The previous iFloat label, though, was inappropriate to reuse again. I think for something as old as this, I'm happy to create a new one. We've pushed over an hour. For those that are following us at this point, well done for you guys for keeping with us.
We could have done all of them, but what else have we got? Well, there are Scotch whiskies. Oh my God, yes! With every series release, there's always a series of Scotch whiskies that accompany the headliners. Even though most of our End of the World series are indeed Scotch whiskies, so we have 6 single malts from the Highlands and Speysides, each featuring our usual labels. That we turned a little darker for this release. There's a youthful but very approachable Blair Athol. There's a PX finished Macduff, 21-year-old Macduff. It's another respectful finish for a complex and well-balanced malt. I'm a big fan of old Macduff, I must admit. There's a sherry finished 10-year-old from Speyside's Craigellachie Distillery. It combines both Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso sherry influences into this traditionally bold malt. It's a worm tub distillery. There's a brace of Glenrothes. You try and find Glenrothes at the moment. Kind of difficult, I must admit. So we have a 14-year-old finished in Oloroso, which you can see is a beautiful colour there. And then we have a 25-year-old that we haven't touched. It's laid down in November 1997, just before my youngest daughter was about to be born. We bottled basically as we found it, and it's from a single hoggy. It is banging. There's also a Macduff, which you can see there as a number 5 in the lineup. Again, we finished that one in a sherry cask, and that's a 21-year-old, I think. And then there's a 25-year-old from a unnameable Speyside distillery. And seriously, I have no idea what distillery that comes from, as we're not. None of us at Boutique-y Whisky are allowed to know. We bought this cask from a private seller, and we have not been allowed to know what this distillery, but it is spectacular. It is comfortingly familiar, and we really don't have a Scooby where this originated from.
No idea at all, chap.
No, seriously, I have no idea. I've got an inkling, and I've got an inkling, and it's spectacular. We've just turned all of our labels a little bit darker, so they're the usual labels that we normally have with our Scotch whiskies, but there is a little bit more darkness to them in this case. Aye.
That was nice. I enjoyed that. Thank you, David, for sharing. Sharing a moment.
I'm so blown away by those two Flying Dutchmans, and yes. I can taste the distillery character.
Yes,
that comes across in both their rums, even though it's completely different to their whiskies. There's a character that comes across which sincerely blows me away. That every time that it's a wild sort of fennel note that comes across in everything that they do, but it sneaks out over time. He's just the nicest man in distilling, isn't he?
And we've got some to share with the world. It's wonderful. If you're watching this and you haven't bought any, if you're a retailer, then you really should get involved. Absolutely. I'm very happy with the 7 rums that I have in front of me. I think they are fantastic. If it was the end of the world right now, I would feel content that I've got these in front of me.
We've got a cracking selection. If it was,
can we just say it's okay? It's all right though. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. We're all right. Despite everything, we're all right.
It is for most of the world. Yeah, I mean, we all have our crosses to bear, but
we're not in too bad a place if we look at it in a balanced way, not from a clickbait headline kind of way. Thank you very much, David. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. It was wonderful. We're going to tuck into the 31-year-old Glen Grant, possibly after we stop this recording. If you are watching this and you would like further information on anything you've seen so far, please do let us know. You can reach out through any method. We'll pick up and pick on that. So
thank you very much for staying this long. And if you need to know anything, like you say, the whiskies, the rums, just hit us on social media, on internal communications. If you with the mothership, just hit out on internal comms. If you're outside of the mothership, hit us on social media. We will tell you everything we know
about these things for sure. Ciao, ciao. Bye bye. Au revoir. TTFN.
Thanks for listening.